So if someone at HGAPS had a Zotero library with a whole bunch of papers in it, and they harvested the DOIs or PMIDs and entered them into that old tool, one per row.
But you mentioned that they already have it in Zotero. Sorry, this is the way that this has more steps usually if people don't use Zotero, but if they do use Zotero, then it's easier, like so much easier. I'm just going to quickly share, stop share and then reshare, share whole screen. Yeah, you can just immediately export from Zotero into Wikidata. So I'm just going to quickly open up Zotero. Okay, can you see my screen
Yes,
with Zotero on it?
Yep.
Okay, so here are some items in Zotero, normal, normal stuff. Oh, those are all unformatted. Here we go. Okay, and I can go into something called Quickstatements. So Quickstatements is the main batch way to enter things into Wikidata from like a table. So if I had, I'm going to create a new batch. What I could do is, actually, I'm just going to use this as use the example with Zotero. But it's basically a simple language that will add multiple items or multiple statements into Wikidata simultaneously. So let's take this one: antimicrobial peptides, pore-formers, or something. And I just drag and drop. You see that from Zotero into Quickstatements. And it immediately says what it's going to do. So it's going to create an item. To that last item, it's going to create the P31. So P31 is this is an instance of, and Q13 is a scholarly article. So it says this last item is an instance of a scholarly article. Here's its English label.
So I'm sorry.
Here's its English description.
The Q13422, that's not the Wikidata ID number? That's
so
something.
This is, so it won't tell me what the Wikidata QID is for it yet because it hasn't created the article of the item.
Yep.
But what it is going to say is,
I'm back on track. I just was thrown by the Q.
Yep. Yeah. So here, 13442814 is the concept of a scholarly article. This is an article in an academic publication, usually peer-reviewed. It's a subclass of scholarly publication. It has the cause academic writing. It uses scholarly peer review. So this is all of the description about the concept of a scholarly article. So that's what this first line here is. It's saying, for this thing that you're going to create, tell me that it's an instance of a scholarly article. So here's its DOI, here's its URL, here's its first author. Author number 1 is this person. Here was the exact date upon which it was published. Here's its title in English, and here's some other information. I can't remember my Q numbers. And if I then say import, it'll import it straight in. So actually, let's do that. I think there's already an item for this. Let's just quickly, I'm just going to quickly do a Wikidata search for this item. Yeah, it already exists. So I'll create a duplicate and then merge the two of them. But here's the item as it already exists on Wikidata. So it already knows that here's the author. Oh, in fact, our new thing is going to be slightly better than this in a couple of ways. But yeah, like it knows its volume, it knows the pages, it knows the publication date, it knows that it was published in Nature Reviews Microbiology. So let's see how good a job is done by this thing here. So let's import it. So this is what it's going to do. And now it tells me what all of these Q numbers are. So yeah, it says it's an instance of a scholarly article. It was written in the language English. Okay, yeah, that's correct. It's got a DOI of whatever. Okay, let's run this.
We're both native speakers of Q1860.
Yeah, I've created it. Yep. Yep. And so it's now imported it. Excellent. It says done, and it tells me this is the queue ID for this new item that I've just created. I'll go to it, and here we go. So now I've done something slightly naughty in that I've deliberately created a duplicate item. So here was the original one that already existed. Here was the duplicate item that I've just created, but you can see it's basically done the same thing. It's got the title, it's got the language of work, publication date. Yep, language of work, publication date, author name string. Interestingly here, the old one only knew that they were K.A. Brogdon. Actually here it knows that they're Kim A. Brogdon, because it's probably pulled the metadata from a slightly different source. Where did this get its metadata from? This got its metadata from PubMed. This got its metadata out of Zotero, which got it from Crossref. So what I'm actually going to do is, because I've deliberately created a duplicate item, I'm just going to merge these two. So merge this back into this one. So we're now going to merge XYZ 25 into XYZ 75, merge those. Creating a redirect. So this is exactly as it would exist in Wikipedia. It's just merging and redirecting, loading a merge destination. Okay, cool, we've merged it. It hasn't noticed, because these author strings are slightly different, it hasn't noticed that they're the same person. So I'm actually going to edit this one. I'm going to copy that text in here because this has the reference. I'm going to remove that one. And I'm going to publish this change. Okay, cool. So we've now fixed that up, and yeah, again in the pages, because of the way I've merged this. In one case it said 238 to 50, 238 to 250. I mean, whichever you prefer, 238 to 250 is probably the most sensible way to say it. So I'm going to publish that change, and I'm going to remove that one. So you can kind of see how the importing isn't perfect. There's some things that will be kind of screwy. So this is current, but the useful thing about doing it this way, so I'm now going to go back to a new batch in Wikidata, a new batch in Quickstatements. So this was me doing it for a single item in, from Zotero. The best practice would be to go through each. So you'll notice how this process didn't spot that there was already an item. That's annoying, because what would have happened had I done it with this SourceMD process, source metadata, it would have noticed that. So in fact, let's do this again as a test, and I want to see whether I'm correct. So where was my DOI? Here's the DOI, copy, paste. Okay, this is the source metadata tool. Check source, and hopefully it'll say you don't need to create a new one, it already exists. Yeah, other sources with this identifier already exists. Trying to update it, this will not create a new one, it's just going to update the old one. And it said, okay, there's no new information I can add to this. It's already got all the information I could think of adding. Fine. So that's why source metadata is slightly better in this case. Can I do multiples at a time? I can't remember. It used, again, the better version definitely can. Let's see if it will do that. Let's add in 2 different DOIs. Check sources for both. Will the old version of this tool do it? Yep, okay, it can. So, okay, source metadata is going to be the better way to do it. So I'll send you the link through for the old version of this tool in chat. More chat, source metadata. So this is the best way to do it, realistically speaking. Eventually there will once again be a better tool. And for anything that doesn't have a DOI, so particularly for example, if you wanted to cite a WHO report, or you wanted to cite a governmental clinical guideline, like a NICE guideline, or whatever the American version of NICE is. So any of those sorts of things, obviously they won't have a DOI, so source metadata won't be able to handle it, but it'll be able to pull out any type of item from Zotero. So if you can format it in Zotero, you can drag and drop from Zotero into Quickstatements, and it will do exactly this. It'll format it all up here, and it'll say it's an instance of a governmental report, and here are the authors and whatever. So long as the data is formatted up in Zotero, it'll be able to read it.
Wow.
I don't think, because I have worked pretty much exclusively in the biochemistry and evolution literature and data literature, everything I have, I think, is just journal articles and the occasional book chapter. So I don't have any difficult examples to try and make it do.
Yeah, the really interesting stuff would be the Wiki Journal of Humanities.
Let's see if it'll spot this. I'm just going to get through that. Yep, okay, so it's spotted that this is an instance of a book, for example. But interestingly, it hasn't spotted the publisher. It hasn't told me who the publisher of this book is, even though I'm pretty sure I have that information in the Zotero data. Oh no, I don't. Okay, that's why it hasn't told me the publisher of this book, because I haven't entered the publisher in my Zotero. So obviously it's only going to be as good as your Zotero item is. But yeah, so that's just a different, it's a Zotero export format in the same way that it can export in, APA 7, it can also export in Quickstatements. And you just drag and drop it into Quickstatements, and it'll start creating items.